Welcome back to Gentle Calm. There is a quiet pattern that many people experience, though few talk about it directly. Every year begins with a sense of renewal. New goals are written down, new habits are planned, new routines are imagined. You decide that this will be the period where things finally become clearer, where you become more disciplined, more focused, more aligned with the life you want to build. For a while, the momentum feels real. You change how you structure your days. You think differently about your priorities. You try to become a slightly improved version of yourself. But after some time, something subtle begins to happen. The clarity fades. The routines loosen. The direction you felt so certain about begins to shift again. Eventually, the process repeats. Another new plan, another set of intentions, another version of who you believe you should become next. From the outside, this cycle often looks like growth. You are constantly evolving, constantly improving, constantly searching for a better version of yourself. But beneath that movement, many people quietly experience something else, a feeling that their life never quite stabilizes. Each new phase feels promising at first, but rarely lasts long enough to become deeply rooted. Your routines change, your priorities adjust. Even your sense of who you are begins to shift with each new direction. And after several cycles of reinvention, something begins to feel strangely fragile. You may still be moving forward, but the ground beneath that movement never quite settles. The reason for this is rarely obvious, because in modern culture, reinvention is often praised. We are told that growth requires constant transformation. Become a new person, upgrade your habits, redesign your life again and again. At first glance, this seems inspiring. It suggests that you are never trapped by your past, that you can reshape your life whenever you decide to. But there is a quieter side to this pattern that many people overlook. Constant reinvention can slowly erode stability. When your identity changes every season, nothing has time to fully solidify. Instead of building on a stable foundation, you repeatedly start from a new beginning. Your life becomes a sequence of temporary versions of yourself. One year you are deeply focused on discipline. Another year, you become more interested in balance. Later, you shift your attention toward productivity, creativity, or some entirely new direction. Each version of yourself brings new habits, new goals, and new expectations. And while each phase may offer valuable insights, the constant resetting prevents anything from becoming deeply anchored. Over time, this pattern creates something subtle but powerful. You begin to experience what could be called identity drift. Identity drift happens when your sense of self moves with every new idea, trend, or burst of motivation. Your direction becomes fluid, your priorities adjust frequently. Your standards sometimes change depending on what feels most compelling in the moment. From the outside, identity drift can look like flexibility, but internally, it often feels like instability. Because without a stable center, every new idea invites you to reconsider who you are. Every opportunity encourages you to rethink your direction. Every challenge tempts you to abandon the version of yourself you were trying to become. This constant shifting creates a quiet sense that your life keeps resetting. You invest energy into building routines only to replace them later. You commit to priorities that feel meaningful, only to redefine them months later. You pursue goals with intensity, but once the initial motivation fades, the structure supporting them disappears as well. None of this means that growth is wrong. Learning is valuable. Adjusting your direction when necessary is part of a thoughtful life. But growth is different from constant reinvention. Growth builds upon what already exists. Reinvention replaces what existed before. Growth creates continuity. Reinvention often creates fragmentation. When your life is built through layered growth, each new insight strengthens what came before. Your identity becomes clearer over time. Your values deepen rather than change. Your direction refines itself without abandoning the foundation beneath it. But when life is built through repeated reinvention, continuity disappears. Each new phase starts from a different assumption about who you are and what matters. And because those assumptions keep shifting, stability never fully develops. Many people believe they need to become someone new in order to improve their life. But often, the real work is not becoming someone new. It is becoming more consistent with who you have already decided to be. Consistency rarely feels dramatic. It does not create the excitement that comes with a fresh beginning. Instead, it creates something quieter. It creates coherence. Coherence means your actions reflect the same underlying principles over long periods of time. Your priorities remain recognizable even as circumstances change. Your behavior expresses values that are not constantly rewritten. This kind of consistency allows identity to solidify. You no longer wake up wondering which version of yourself will lead the day. You are not constantly renegotiating what matters most. Instead, your life begins to orbit around a center that remains stable even as your goals evolve. This stability reduces an enormous amount of internal friction. When identity is unclear, every situation becomes a negotiation. Should you follow through on the commitment you made earlier? Should you maintain the standards you set when motivation was high? Should you continue moving in the direction you once believed mattered? Without a defined center, each question requires a fresh decision. But when identity becomes stable, many of those negotiations disappear. You act in alignment with principles that already exist. Those principles do not change with your mood. They do not disappear when life becomes inconvenient. They remain steady enough to guide your behavior across many different situations. This is one of the most overlooked sources of calm. Calm does not always come from eliminating pressure. Often, it comes from reducing internal confusion. When you know what kind of person you are choosing to be, your decisions become clearer. Not easier, but clearer. You no longer chase every new idea that promises improvement. You evaluate opportunities through the lens of principles you already hold. Some opportunities will align, others will not. And that clarity prevents the endless cycle of starting over. A stable identity does not prevent growth. It enables growth. Because when the foundation beneath your life remains intact, development becomes cumulative. Each year builds on the last. Your habits deepen instead of resetting. Your priorities refine instead of replacing one another. Your direction becomes clearer rather than constantly shifting. Instead of reinventing yourself every year, you gradually strengthen the same underlying structure. From the outside, this kind of progress may look less dramatic, but internally, it creates something far more valuable. It creates stability. And stability allows your life to expand without feeling fragile. If you have experienced the cycle of constant reinvention, it may be worth asking a quieter question. What if the goal is not to become someone new every year? What if the goal is to define who you are once, clearly enough that the years ahead can simply deepen that identity? Not through dramatic transformation, but through steady alignment. What principles remain intact regardless of the direction your life takes? What values guide your behavior when motivation fades? What standards remain meaningful even when no one else is watching? These questions do not create quick answers, but they create foundations. And once those foundations exist, your life no longer needs to reset with every new phase. Instead, it continues building upward from the same center. If this reflection resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Gentle Calm is built for people who are less interested in constant reinvention and more interested in developing clarity that lasts. If this video gave you something meaningful to think about, take a moment to like it. That small signal helps this kind of thoughtful conversation reach others who may be quietly searching for a steadier way to live. If you would like to explore these ideas more deeply, the Gentle Calm book series walks through the progression from calming mental noise to building internal order and developing a durable personal framework for life. The Gentle Calm Daily Reset Journal offers a simple daily practice designed to reinforce clarity and consistency in everyday life. And for those who enjoy slower, reflective writing, I share weekly essays on Substack that expand on these ideas in a more personal format. All of those resources are linked below. Thank you for spending this time here. And as always, stay calm.